Welcome to our Black History series featuring me, Miss Teacher Lady, and co-starring Junior. Today we're going to be learning about the bravery of 9 Black teenagers from Little Rock, Arkansas. Let's get into it. Hey baby, what's wrong? Why are you looking that way?
Well, I was reading this book and they were yelling at this little girl and said, "Get out of here, go back to where you came from, go back to Africa," and it scared me.
Well, baby, I'm so sorry that you had to read that. But 50 years ago, an angry mob of white mothers, fathers, students, and local residents in Little Rock, Arkansas screamed racist and hurtful things like what you just read at a 15-year-old Black girl. They were trying to keep her and 8 other students out of an all-white Central High School. The name of that Black teenage girl was Elizabeth Eckford. She was one of what would become known as the Little Rock 9 and would go on to become heroes in a long battle against segregation. You know what? Let's just get into the story. And you could come too. Let's go. Let's take a moment and talk about segregation. What is that word anyways? Have you ever seen one of these signs? See, for a long time, Black and whites could not use the same bathrooms, drink from the same water fountains, stay at the same hotels. They had to go to separate restaurants, swim in separate swimming pools. They had separate seating on buses, trains, and even in movie theaters. And certainly last but not least, they attended separate schools. There was something called separate but equal.
Well, I got a question. Were they separate and equal?
Absolutely not. Black schools were underfunded and under-resourced. If you think hard enough, you may feel the same way about many of our schools today. Many of the Black schools had no indoor plumbing, no desks, old textbooks, dilapidated and overcrowded buildings, and no school buses. Do you know what that means? That means many Black students, like my grandpa used to say, had to walk miles to get to school with holes in their shoes.
Wait.
Okay, well maybe they...
Really?
Well, maybe not that old.
He's too old, Mom.
Okay, that's much better.
I can't believe they had to walk miles to get to school, Mom.
However, something amazing happened in May of 1954. In the Supreme Court decision of Brown versus the Board of Education, the ruling said that separate but equal facilities were actually unconstitutional. So even though all schools were supposed to be integrated, that was not enforced. And many white folk were not having that, especially in Little Rock, Arkansas. So for a long time, the schools stayed segregated. That is, until the NAACP started making phone calls to enforce integration laws. The National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. It helped to protect and fight for the rights of Black folk on legal grounds, because oftentimes Black people couldn't find people to protect them or fight for their rights. So they had to look to themselves to protect themselves, to look out for themselves, and to fight for themselves. So instead of being reactive, the NAACP became proactive. They began to recruit brave parents and students who were willing to take the risk of whatever would come their way to integrate all white schools.
Mom, that's the girl from the book, Elizabeth.
Exactly. 15-year-old Elizabeth Eckford. See, on September 4th, 1957, on the first day of school, all the students were supposed to arrive to school at the same time. But because of a miscommunication, it causes 15-year-old Elizabeth to arrive alone. And so while she's walking, the crowd surrounds her and chants what you hear in the background right now. So she searches for kindness in the crowd, and she sees an elderly woman. But instead of kindness, the elderly woman spits at her.
But Mom, she looks so cool and brave with those shades on.
Yeah, but behind those shades, what she was really fighting back and hiding were tears of fear and sadness. And when she did finally arrive to school, she couldn't even get inside. Because the governor of Arkansas, Orville Faubus, called out the Arkansas National Guard, soldiers who were armed with guns. Yup, and they refused to let her enter. And once the other 8 arrived, they turned them all away. It wasn't until 3 weeks later that they were finally allowed to enter, because President Dwight D. Eisenhower sent in U.S. Army soldiers to escort the Black students into the school. But this was only the beginning. So even though they integrated the school, they were tortured in hopes that the students would drop out of the school, day in and day out. Each student had to have soldiers to protect them, although the soldiers were very reluctant. White students pushed them, shoved them, kicked them, spat at them, pushed and knocked them down, but they kept on going. Selma Mothershed, Ernest Green, Elizabeth Eckford, Gloria Ray, Minnie Jean Brown, Jefferson Thomas, Carlotta Walls, Terrence Roberts, Melba Patillo. All of these students were tremendously brave. But since it's Women's History Month, I'll talk about all of them, but I really want to put the focus on Elizabeth. And here is what the real students look like. They were extremely courageous. They never told their parents what was happening because they knew how important it was to remain in school, and they didn't want their parents to pull them out. Everett Green became the first Black student to graduate from an integrated school in Little Rock, Arkansas, and every single one of the Little Rock 9 would follow. They would get in trouble, they would fight, they would stand up against their aggressors, but they made history because they chose to value the greater good over themselves. That's how amazing the Little Rock 9 is. They understood that history always has its eye on you. Elizabeth's life changed after that. She struggled with post-traumatic stress syndrome. She dealt with depression and anxiety. She went on to do documentaries and interviews. She lost her kids to foster care for a while and lost one of her sons to police brutality. She did not have an easy life after this experience, but she sacrificed so much so that life could be better for us. And we must never forget what they all endured so that we can have the opportunities that we have now. So no matter what you are experiencing, no matter the struggle, remember what the ultimate goal is. When you're in school and you're learning and it's hard and it's difficult, remember that in the end, it's going to be so much greater than what you've gone through.
Thanks, Mom. I learned so much. Thank you for teaching me.
Boy, you're welcome anytime. Now let's get back to reality.